You're listening to
They're gonna call it a hard foul. They're gonna call it a hard foul.
offering in-depth analysis on all things Boston Celtics with your hosts, Jim and Mike Quigley.
Says go. Nimhard drives into the paint. Not going. It's stolen by Holiday. Siakam trying to get him, and he fouled him with 1.1 remaining. On its feet, hoping their Pacers can pull it out and send the series to Boston. Nimhard down the lane, goes inside, blocked by Brown, and Horford the rebound. Jaylen Brown with another big play. Holiday in the front court. Brown searches and looks under a minute remaining. Brown on the drive, pulls back, lost the ball, got it back, kicks it out. White, corner three, bang! Derek White from downtown. Celtics by 3. McConnell pushing it up. Nimhard gets it. Nimhard step back, his three-pointer. Off the mark, rebound Tatum.
All right. It's the morning after the Celtics have clinched their ticket to the NBA Finals, sweeping the Indiana Pacers with 2 wins over the weekend in Indiana, both in comeback fashion. We had Saturday night and kind of methodical 18-point comeback, sparked by great defense in the second half, particularly late in the third quarter into the fourth, and then some real clutch play down the stretch. And then last night, just kind of chaotic fourth quarter, where the Pacers could not score down the stretch, and the Celtics took advantage of it and closed the deal with a late game Derek White three. And we're off to the NBA Finals. I thought the Pacers really showed a lot. You called it before the series. You actually thought it was going to be a deep series, but I still think you were right. They were better than I thought they were going to be. They never stopped playing. They came out to Celtics. You could say, they should have got one, if not two, of these games and kept the series going. But it's over. Celtics advance. And Mike, how you feeling today? What's your initial takeaways, thoughts on this team and where we are going forward?
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and thanks for listening. A really good Tuesday morning. The Celtics going back to the NBA Finals. I feel great, Jim. Nothing like a sweep and tough wins in the series. 3 wins that the Celtics had to really close out in games that looked like they shouldn't have won, and they found a way. Being down 9 with about 4 minutes last night, and then the last 3 minutes and 11 seconds, almost holding Indiana without a field goal. Just the defense was the difference in this series in the fourth quarters and in overtime. Defending at a high level, making huge defensive plays, whether it was Jaylen Brown's block last night, a Holiday steal at the end of Game 3, or the turnover at the end of Game 1. So many guys stepping up. Jason Tatum averaging over 30 points a game in the series. And I think in the end, Indiana just missed that guy that could close out games for them. And the Celtics had multiple guys that could close games. The narrative about Boston all season was, could they do this? And they're showing us that they can, and they're making it fun. And I'm appreciating the ride, and I'm really looking forward to the NBA Finals because I think you have to feel really good about where the Celtics are at. So many different guys stepping up. You had Al Horford with 7 3-point makes in Game 3. Just a fun postseason ride. And my last thing I want to say, they were getting torched in Game 3, just absolutely torched through 3.5 quarters. And in that second half of Game 3, they gave up 21 points in the third quarter and 21 points in the fourth quarter. And then last night in the fourth quarter, the Celtics held Indiana to 19 points. So defense led the way when the Celtics needed the crunch time minutes and crunch time stops. They made them. And there have been years in these moments, especially against Miami, where in the crunch time, the Celtics would make the stops when they had to. So you have to feel good. You also have to feel good that the Celtics won't have an opponent that plays this way for the rest of the postseason, whoever they end up with in the finals, most likely Dallas. I think the Celtics play better on the defensive end against slower paced teams, no matter what the talent looks like. So glad the series is over because Indiana made it a dogfight the way they play every game.
Yeah, no, it was Indiana came at them, and I think the difference was just poise down the stretch. And I don't know if it's kind of been more of a learned behavior for the Celtics um, than they have in obviously past seasons. I still thought last night like they attacked Indiana a little bit too slow offensively and got away with it a little bit. But I don't think they were the very sharp offensive team down the stretch in the fourth quarter. Uh, but Indiana went so cold that they were able to prevail. But they made big plays, and obviously game three there was a ton of just really, that was impressive because Indiana was making some shots late. They hit a couple threes and stretched it to eight with about 3 minutes left, and the Celtics just kept coming. They just kept coming. They found matchups that they really liked, and they took advantage of it. Jaylen Brown with that monster dunk, and then turnaround jump shot against Miles Turner. You had a Tatum key three, and then all the just unbelievable plays from Drew Holiday. Starting with the 3-point play, then the steal, amongst others. So they just showed tremendous poise down the stretch in these games that Indiana really didn't have. And maybe that comes with the experience. Obviously, they lose a really good playmaker in Halliburton. Hurt them quite a bit. I also thought, taking him off the floor, they got a little bit better defensively against the Celtics. So it's not an equal give and take, but they definitely gained a little bit defensively as he was attacked those first two games that pretty consistently. But it was impressive, and I think you said it right that Miami and in other instances the Celtics, obviously the Warriors a couple of years back too. They haven't come up big in these clutch moments. Now that said, I don't think outside of game two, I don't think they really ever had a complete game where they played great over the course of the series, and they're going to have to play much better going forward, particularly against, it looks like it's going to be the Mavericks. If they're going to want to close this out, and they have an awesome opportunity to close this out. But I think it's important to stick with this pace of the series. Mike, we got to talk about the players. We got to talk about the job Drew Holiday did. We got to talk about what Jaylen Brown being the MVP, the last two games from Jason Tatum, the clutch defensive plays from Derek White and his, winning three-pointer, and the steals and the blocks. I just do want to take a moment and talk about Joe Mazzulla because I thought he was quite good over these last couple of games. I think he made some adjustments, and I think he adjusted to what Indiana did. If you remember in game two, the Celtics went small with success, and they put in Brissett. He gave them energy. I don't think Indiana reacted to it well, and the Celtics kind of pulled away in that fourth quarter. They tried that in game three, and Indiana punished them through the first half with their size. They used Siakam, they used Turner. They were able to get the ball to the post consistently. They scored in the paint with ease. And Mazzulla, to his credit, did not stay stubborn. He went away from it, and he went to Tillman, and he went to much more Horford, playing him, leaned on him for more minutes than I think he wanted to. And he got, as a result, much better defense in that second half, much more inspired defense. The Celtics clean up the paint quite a bit. They clean up on the boards quite a bit, and really were able to, change that game by making, an adjustment there that, is obvious in real time, but he did it, and he deserves credit for it. You also, when I think your star player goes out of his way to say that in the third quarter, they call the timeout, and Mazzulla basically says, stop feeling bad for yourself. What did you expect? This is the playoffs. Bad things are going to happen. We're down 18 here. Let's just go out there and play our game and get this done. And that message, and he obviously said it much more inspiring than I did, resonated, obviously. And from that 5 minute mark on, their defense was incredible. And the Pacers couldn't get anything going, and they flustered them and really did a dynamic job. Um, and then last night, I thought, particularly over the last 3 minutes of that game, so Tatum picks up his fifth foul. Missoula takes him out for Tillman, and then for the defensive possession, then immediately calls a timeout to get him back in. So he saves him of his six. The Celtics come out of the timeout and they constantly target Obi Toppin with great success. Everything that was created off, going after Obi Toppin. Whether it was Tatum going downhill or Brown's attack to get ball the white in the corner, they just went after him. And again, it was that communication to his team on exactly what they had to do in those situations that were just huge. And I think he's been much maligned. There's things that I haven't liked during the season. We had serious questions about him coming in, and he still has another series where he needs to prove it. But on the whole, I thought this has really been a great playoffs for him, and particularly this was a really good series. I don't know what your thoughts are there, and I know you've had your difficulties with him in the past, but I think it was important to kind of mention it.
Yeah, I think those are really good points, and he definitely outcoached Rick Carlisle in this series. As I felt like Indiana blowing it down the stretch in so many ways. The coach didn't help with the paces. I thought not using a timeout in Game 3 with such a young team was a mistake, and especially with the way they were kind of killing the Celtics on inbound plays throughout that series.
Oh,
even
yeah.
at the end of Game 3, that flag football play that they drew up with his assistant coach, I guess being a flag football coach to get Neesmith open for the wide open three, I think is an example of why you wanted to call a timeout in that moment. And then last night, I thought there were a lot of times where Indiana was losing the momentum and he didn't really help them. I also thought that at the end of Game 1 in overtime, he went too small, where he was just allowing Tatum to get whatever he wanted in overtime, whether really going to the basket with guys, half his size covering him. I definitely think Missoula coached him and has done a good job in these playoffs. It was the first time I think Missoula was really tested in these playoffs. These were really the only competitive games really for Boston. They were blown out a couple times and really separated themselves against Cleveland and Miami almost every game. So, yeah, he'll definitely be tested. I mean, Jason Kidd's doing a great job coaching the way he uses his bigs and the way Dallas is playing defense and their defensive game plans against Minnesota, the way they're attacking Rudy Gobert. You would have to imagine it's going to be Dallas, and seeing the way the Celtics struggled against these guards, attacking them, getting into the paint. You're probably going to see a lot of Kyrie Irving attacking Al Horford and such in this next series, but we'll see what adjustments Joe makes to that on the defensive end, similar to what he did. And I think an example of good coaching is the team, didn't play great at some points in the first half. I think in all 4 of these games of the series, especially with closing out quarters. So that's a coaching point that he'll focus on for the championship. But his adjustments to those were the way these guys played in the second half of these games, and in order to close these games out. In previous seasons, particularly last year, Jim, the Celtics don't win 2 out of 3 of these games, maybe all 3 of them, they lose. With the way they played last year in these big moments where they would get tight and then they couldn't stop anybody and they couldn't hit any open shots and they would dribble the clock out and they would turn the ball over. Complete opposite, where last night they weren't able to score. As you mentioned, the offense wasn't executing that great, and credit to Indiana because they were playing good defense. They were giving the Celtics the paint, and the Celtics would have to go into a drive and kick offense, but the Celtics were having a hard time getting to the paint because the on-ball pressure from Indiana in the fourth quarter was actually really good. Indiana wasn't leaving the Celtics with a lot of options other than to go pick and roll or to go ISO and drive and kick because they were just taking away the three-point line. And to Indiana's credit, they were taking away those drives, even though the paint was wide open. Celtics were having a hard time getting there, except, of course, for that Jaylen Brown play where he drove to the hoop and the defense sagged and he got Derek White to hit the open three. Indiana, I thought, did a good job and forced some of that from Boston. But to the Celtics' credit, why things weren't going well offensively in that fourth quarter, they were making stop after stop after stop after stop. Sometimes having to make multiple stops because loose balls would get hit out of bounds. Indiana's would get second or third tries at scoring, and Celtics were still just playing tremendous defense. I mean, Nembhard had 16 points at the half and only ended with 24. I don't really remember him being much of a factor in that second half. Same with Siakam. Siakam scored 18 points on 19 shots. I think after that first quarter, he was like 6 of 7. So, everybody just really stepped up and stepped up without foul. Even though I think the Celtics did get away with a flagrant foul that would have certainly changed the course of this game. It speaks to Missoula because the players are listening to his adjustments. If you're talking to your team down 18 saying stop feeling bad for yourself and they respond, that means they're listening to their coach. And he's got their ear right now, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I feel like Indiana did a good job defensively. I also felt like the Celtics were really slow getting into their sets, and they were able to get good looks. You had the Derek White open three with about 2 minutes left to go that, he just flat missed. Then you had a Jaylen Brown. He had a point blank layup with just over a minute to go that would have, when the game was tied at 1-2, that he just flat missed. But of both situations, they went late. They went late, and the options were limited to just kind of going with that one shot, that one option, instead of kind of moving the ball a little bit quicker and trying to get Indiana in rotation. And maybe that was by design. I think it was to find Obi Toppin, but there was a lot of that in the fourth quarter where I felt like on Saturday night they really just attacked them consistently, found the matchup that they wanted, and just kind of went and were able to get just great look after great look after great look. Or I thought last night was just kind of too slow down the stretch. They were able to, get it done anyways, and a lot of it had to do with the defense. I thought some of it had to do with Indiana really getting tight, and they were able to persevere and win. But I didn't think last night was the best night effort overall. I thought, they kind of got away with it, and they were able to win. I thought Saturday night, what they did in the second half was a spectacular effort, and being able to pull that away.
Can we talk a little bit about? I want to talk about Jason Tatum. I know he wasn't the MVP of the series, but his passing in Game 3 and passing in Game 4 were out of this world. The three to Al Horford in Game 3 in the corner, that pass behind the back driving to the hoop was just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
To cut into that lead, and he was making play after play after play with his passing and finding guys throughout the series. And I know he's been taking a beating for whatever reason nationally. They just hate him. That kind of stuff, Jim. If he's doing that in the finals, the Celtics are going to be really hard to beat if he's passing at that level. I think he ended up with 8 assists again last night. He's just finding guys. He's making a lot of good decisions. He's not turning the ball over. His shooting's still not great, but the playmaking skills of this guy is out of this world. It was Game 3 was really on display to me. A couple behind the back passes to Horford that led to open threes.
Yeah, that one in the corner was unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, he even had a tip pass to Derek White last night that led to a layup. he had another terrific pass to Tillman. I just think Tillman wasn't expecting it. Even he was surprised that Tatum was able to pass between three guys and get him the ball. And by the way, Tillman's got like hands for cement, but um, yeah, just yeah, he's been awesome, man. He really has. You could argue after these last two games that he should have been in the discussion for MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm glad Brown got it. He made the last two plays last night. He hit the biggest three of the season in game one. Obviously, Brown, fantastic.
It made the defensive play too, that off the
Yeah,
timeout Nimrod was going down. It was good design and it looked like he was going to get a layup, and Brown just, pinned it and with a great
yeah,
block, and when it was tied at 102, it was just a terrific play that led down to then he made the assist, like you said, on the way three, the following play. So just he's had a few sequences like that down the stretch. Brown has that it's just been great.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's been a lot of that. I mean, Drew Holiday's rebound last night was huge. It gave Indiana no shot at the series.
Mhm.
Game over. Celtics going to the championship. His defense at the end of game three, that play he made on, to turn that ball over. And this is why we brought this guy in. Derek White hitting the big three at the end of game four. Al Horford hitting 7 threes, at 38 years old in game three, a put away game. And they needed all those threes to the point where Indiana had to adjust to him in game four to open up other guys. Just fantastic stuff. Really, the starters in this series were the story for Boston. And I don't think we get to appreciate the Celtics much on this pod. We got more than a week until game one. And it's going to be Dallas. There isn't this miraculous comeback happening in Minnesota. I still think Minnesota might be able to make it a series because they got talent, but it's going to be Dallas and Boston. It's going to be an excellent NBA Finals. And so we'll have plenty of time to break that down. But for now, it's just like the Celtics are 12-2 in this postseason. 12-2. And I know everybody's going to talk about the injuries, but Mitchell played 3 out of the 5 games in Cleveland. Halliburton was there for the 2 games in Boston, and they weren't able to close out with him on the floor. So it hasn't all been
Yeah, and
easy.
Indiana's not even here without injuries to Giannis and Dame and all
Well,
the
New York was just a mess.
New
Yeah,
York had. I think if we want to talk about injuries in the Eastern Conference, it wasn't necessarily the teams that Boston played. It was the teams that they didn't play that probably, you know, gave Boston the biggest boost. You're not facing a healthy Embiid. You're not facing Giannis and Dame, and you're not facing a really, good New York Knicks team when they're healthy. But that's part of it. You got to stay healthy, and the Celtics are on the 1 seed, and these are the matchups they drew. So the regular season does mean something. But you're right about Tatum. You're right. He was aggressive, and that was the difference between game 2 and the rest of the series, and particularly games 3 and 4. He was aggressive on both ends. Played really hard. Rebounded the ball at a high level. You talk about his playmaking. That pass to Al that you mentioned was just, wasn't through 3 guys. Wasn't even looking at Al. Just knew he was there. He felt Miles Turner on him. He knew Miles Turner was covering Al, and right into his shooting pocket behind the bounce pass right into Al's shooting pocket, perfectly done. Um, yeah, no, and the Celtics are gonna go. He goes, and he was fantastic. He was fantastic with his aggression and his passing. And I even thought the numbers weren't as good last night, although he almost had a triple double, and he did have 5 turnovers, and his shooting wasn't as great. But I felt like his shots are more online than they were earlier in the year, even though he was just whatever 3 of 10 from 3-point line. I felt like the misses weren't a mile off like we saw in game 2. I felt like they were online. And hopefully, you got a week to 10 days, I guess 10 days until the next game. So, who knows how any of these guys are going to look for game 1, and what carries over and what doesn't. But they need that out of him from the get-go. When they do play the Mavericks, and I agree with you, it's going to be the Mavericks. they ripped their heart out in game three, the Timberwolves. And so I don't know what's much left of that Wolves team going into tonight's game. Maybe they'll surprise me and pull one out, but I really don't think so. I think that's going to be a sweep too. So it's and they did this, Mike, and it's, you hear all about the injuries of the other teams, and even, the national telecast last night, Bob Myers was talking about the Celtics have been a complete team throughout these playoffs, but they haven't. And they're not going to win a title unless they get whole and complete. And Kristaps Porzingis was there, and he was watching last night. But you could feel his presence not being there. Al having to become a starter and not being a bench guy. The ability for Indiana to score in the paint at will, and find matchups that they wanted. The Celtics not having that kind of just X factor on the offensive end when everything seems to be bogging down, where they could just find a matchup to him on the post, or his ability to stretch out a big man so the paint opens up for you. All those things change a little bit. I mean, the Celtics were basically just a 5-out offense for these last two games in Indiana. They would sometimes put the guys on the post, but for the most part, they decided, and probably rightfully so, that they were going to be a 5-out offense. Porzingis, that changes. And it changes what you can do on both ends quite a bit. How many times were Indiana's guys just able to get to the paint and attack it without any fear whatsoever? That happened pretty consistently, unless Derek White was able to protect the rim. And so they're going to need him to get healthy. I do feel like he was missed. The other thing I really appreciate that you just said is the lack of appreciation, maybe from even this pod at times, for the Celtics team. 12-2 in these playoffs. They won an 800 clip during the regular season. They have as many 20-point leads and victories as any team ever in the history of the NBA, especially when you include the playoffs. They've been dominant. They've been dominant every step of the way, regardless of who they've played. And now it's just a matter of finishing the deal, because if they're able to, and a lot of people aren't going to want to admit this, but if they're able to finish this off and win a title, this is going to be a historic season. This is going to, numbers-wise, go down as one of the greatest seasons of all time because of the dominance. So if, depending on how this looks in the finals, there's quite a bit at stake here. And they've put themselves in position to have it at stake, which is a good thing. The ride's been great. What they've accomplished so far has been amazing. It's weird how much naturally, I saw that guy, Nick Wright, who I know hates the Celtics, mention all the things they've done, but he says they don't feel like a historically good team. They're going to get punched in the mouth and lose to 5 against Mavericks. Kevin O'Connor, who used to be a Celtics beat guy, is, the Western Conference is so much tougher. The Celtics aren't going to be ready, essentially. I don't know. The Celtics kind of dominated Dallas this year. I know it was a different team the first time they played. Wasn't a different team the second time they played. They were the best team against the Western Conference.
I think Dallas is a different team now.
Yeah,
I think they're
same roster, but they've been playing much better for sure. And they're a really, really solid team. I think it's going to be a tough finals. Celtics were also the best team in the league against the Western Conference all year. There's been very few hiccups in the road. That doesn't mean they're going to roll out there and win this no problem. But I think it's important what you said to appreciate what they've done. And, there's going to be a lot of people that pick the Mavericks to win this.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm kind of closing my comments with this, Mike. There's going to be a lot of national people that end up picking the Mavericks to win this title. I think when, they're going to be a lot of time to think about this, and they're going to nitpick the Celtics team. And that might be true if Porzingis doesn't get on the court. I think if Porzingis is on the court and he's close to healthy, this thing's the Celtics to lose. And I think the matchups, when we get this late into the year, it's talent matters, but matchups are more important. And I think the matchups in the upcoming series potentially, and I know we're gonna have plenty of time to talk about this, but I think they really favor the Celtics if Porzingis is on the floor. And this should be theirs to take. It's right there for them right now. It's right there for them, and it could set up quite a run going forward if they're able to pull this off. So
Yeah,
those are
definitely.
kind of my closing thoughts, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, if the Celtics are able to pull it out, it'd be definitely a historic season. And I think it's going to be tough to pull it out. I think I'm interested to see um, the injuries updates with Derek Lively. Him and Gafford, that rotation that kid has been using has been really effective. And they both bring different things to the game. The passing, the bigs on Dallas is something that scares me a little bit. And then the clutch play of Dallas
Oh, sure. Yeah.
is also some. Yeah, it seems like PJ Washington really shows up in those moments, hitting big threes, which really impacts how Luka and Kyrie can play. And we haven't seen Kyrie Irving play at this level in a long time, but he's done it. And he can. We talk about guys who can wreck a series. And Kyrie playing Robin to a Batman does scare me a little bit when he's playing at this level. Because I think Luke is going to show up no matter what. I think Luke is going to put up huge numbers. And we've seen Luka hit some devastating buzzer beaters against the Celtics in the past. But he's never had a guy like this playing at this level with this much talent. And I think because Kyrie wasn't playing so much the last couple of years and he had so much going on outside of basketball that I forgot how talented he is. And I'm a little nervous about that matchup. And the one thing that gives me pause and hope with the Celtics is that the Celtics historically play well against teams like Dallas. Not saying they play well against like very talented team. They play well against ISO basketball.
Yeah.
And the commentate the discussions around the league is that the Celtics play too much ISO basketball, but actually the statistics show that Dallas has played the most in the playoffs this year. And so in those moments, like the Celtics, I think struggle against teams that fly around, like Indiana, launch a bunch of threes, like Miami and Golden State. But have done well against some of that ISO play, like a Milwaukee Bucks or a Philadelphia 76ers team. So I think as much as we're going to get frustrated with some of the tough defense that Dallas plays now and their bigs and, Derek Jones Jr. getting out there on Tatum, and there's going to be some ugly basketball. I think Dallas fans are in for a little bit of a surprise too. That there's going to be a lot of moments in this NBA Finals where they're going to be like, why the hell are we turning the ball over so much? Why are we making so many bad decisions? So I think the Celtics play really well in that kind of grind on the defensive end. I worry a little bit how the Celtics are going to play offensively against Dallas more than I do defensively. So I'm really looking forward to that series. I'm looking forward to breaking it down. Yeah, I'm a little nervous, Jim. I think the Celtics are the favorite, but just watching this Dallas team and the way they've been playing, I mean, they beat some really good teams to get to where they're at. And now they're dominating a team that just might not be ready for that moment, but they're picking their matchups.
Well, they really match up well against Minnesota, and it was a Kyrie series coming in, I thought, because Conley, whether it was him on him or whoever, they could get Gobert kind of on skates on the pick and roll, and you've seen the Celtics do it to Gobert over and over again anytime they played him, even though he's a great defensive player at the rim. If you have the right type of player, you can really take advantage of him. And Kyrie's perfect for that. And Conley struggles to stay in front of him. When they have Anthony Edwards on him, they would just go to the screen and roll. And Kyrie was just able to get to the middle consistently. And when the game would kind of feel like it was going in Minnesota's direction, it was a lot of time, it would be Kyrie. And a lot of it was just attacking Gobert, especially that game 2. where Karl Anthony Towns didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. Kyrie was just great. He was great. We look a lot about the last 2 minutes and Luka action, which you should, but Kyrie in that fourth quarter was dominant.
Well, we talked. So my the way Jaylen Brown has played post All-Star break, I think has been top 5 in the NBA and hasn't been talked about enough. The same goes for Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
Post All-Star break, his offense has been at an elite level. So again, I think yeah, we'll break it down even more. But what the Celtics have this year has been incredible. It's been fun, Jim. I do have to get off soon, but they're back in the NBA Finals, second time in 3 years. They've gone through it now, where they lost the championship. So you expect that they're ready for this. They feel like they're ready for this. So if you're going to beat Boston, you better play elite for 48 minutes. Indiana wasn't able to do that. They were able to play at elite level for about 39 to 40 minutes in these games in the cost. I think in order to beat Boston, you have to play at your best for 48 minutes, and that's going to be hard to do 4 times. This team is really, really good. I think we have to start respecting them for how good they are. Especially their starting lineup. It's one of the better starting lineups I've ever watched.
And what they've been great at doing, and this will lead into the Dallas series, and I know you got to go inside, close out, but they expose your weaknesses. The Celtics have just gone after your weak points, especially on your defensive end. And they did it against Toppin. They did it against Halliburton. They targeted Nimhart over and over and over again, and they did it in the previous series, and that's been something that's really carried over since Brad Stevens. The Celtics just do it at a much higher level now. So if you look ahead, I think Kyrie and Luka better get ready on the defensive end because the Celtics are going to go right after them. They're going to go right after them, and they've done it to those guys over and over again in the regular season. They did it to Kyrie in the Brooklyn series a couple of years back. And I think if we're looking at an offensive game plan, those two are going to have a huge target on their back.
Yeah, they sure will. And that should be the game plan.
Yeah.
One thing about Dallas is they're just tough.
Yeah.
They take on the personality of Luka. They really do. The whole team does. Maybe not to all of its roses where they do complain a lot to the refs. But as far as the toughness goes and talking trash and being locked in, they're locked in. This is if the Boston Celtics weren't in the NBA Finals right now, this would be a team that I'd be rooting for. Like I like their edge.
That's the country is going to be rooting for them, and I think the national media. I think it's going to be an interesting, especially with 10 days of discussion about to start. On this series, Mike, I think it's going to be a lot of pro Dallas, and people are going to talk themselves into the Mavericks winning this thing. I think that you're going to see a lot of that over these.
Whatever. It's ball talk. Just roll the balls out. And we'll play 28 years from now.
Well, you just got too much time. You got too much time. That's a problem. Yeah.
It's dumb. Like if Dallas sweeps tonight, which they probably will, I don't understand why we're not playing on like Saturday. It's ridiculous.
The discourse around Kyrie is going to get so fucking boring too. It's like we know the history in Boston. Like we get it. Like I don't know how much you can talk about this, but we're going to have 10 days to do that. All right, Mike, how do you want to handle this going forward? The Celtics are in the championship. They're back in it, second time in 3 years. Yeah. How do you want to handle this? Do you want to do another pod before the finals and really break this down?
Yeah, next week. I think, if the series ends tonight, we can pick a day and we'll talk about game 1 and we'll get ready. The good thing about Dallas sweeping is that there's no advantage as far as both these teams not being ready for game 1. They'll both come out flat. So go Dallas.
Yeah, a lot of Tim Hardaway versus Sam Hauser talk. We're going to get right into it. Really build that up over these next 10 days.
Hardaway's not even playing.
He's not even playing. Maybe Hauser shouldn't.
They haven't even been playing him.
No. All right, everyone. Congratulations to the 23-24 Eastern Conference champions, Boston Celtics. We'll talk soon.